The public disclosure phase is precisely choreographed, where at a predetermined moment, the embargo that we set lifts. And three things happen in the embargo. One, we publish a CVE ID. Two, the vendor's, the third party's official solution is officially released to the public. And three, security bulletins start to appear across all these organization websites simultaneously. And this enables other organizations and customers to go ahead and quickly protect themselves. Finally, our work here is done. Or is it? This was a single vulnerability, a single battle in a never-ending war against 0 days. And to keep winning these battles, we need researchers. The world needs researchers like you. And to collaborate with researchers and to incentivize their efforts, we work with them on collaborating on their content, to potentially inviting them into our programs, and a whole lot more. So you want to be a researcher. There are 3 cardinal rules. 1, remember to focus your research work on us, AWS. Please don't target our customers, because not everyone follows best practices. Second, in the unlikely event or while you are performing your research, you come across another customer's data, stop immediately. Report it to us. Let's go ahead and address it. And most importantly, remember the pilot in the second aircraft. Remember to coordinate with us. On this journey, we went from identifying a single vulnerable product to uncovering deeper risks in organizations across the world, and the intricate dance to protect everyone. So the next time you submit a report, remember, behind that seemingly simple submit button actually stands an army of teams ready to transform your report into protection for millions. My name is Albin Vattakattu, and you have been a fantastic audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Albin. So that is us talking about the AWS Vulnerability Disclosure Program and kind of how it works, the high-level process that we're going to be going over. But how about some real-life experience in it? This is Kasimir Schulz. He is one of our top researchers in the program. He writes some great content. So let's give him your attention. He's going to talk about some of his current research as well as working with AWS to do disclosures. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ryan. So as you can see, I might have a director title, but from the quality of my slides, I am most definitely still a researcher. Always feel free to reach out to me, Kasimir Schulz at LinkedIn or on Twitter as well. And I currently work with a company called Hidden Layer. And despite working with a company, I get to work with companies such as AWS from time to time as well, which is always great. Because of my position, I have a unique situation where I am both running a CNA and a researcher, which means I get to see what happens on the reporting side, the parts that you need, how difficult it can be to do a report, and I feel the frustrations from other researchers when a report isn't handled the way that they expect. So I'm going to try to do something a little bit unorthodox today, and I'm going to try to talk about one of the vulnerabilities I submitted to AWS while only using pieces of my original report in that situation. So we'll get to see if I was able to write a good report, and hopefully you guys are going to agree that it's a good one. Whenever I try to write a report that I'm hoping is a good one, I try to focus on 4 main features. So the first is that I try to get a detailed explanation of the root cause of the vulnerability. A lot of times I see people, as soon as they find a vulnerability, they disclose it. They don't actually look at the root cause. And because of that, there can be a misunderstanding with the triager. Sometimes it could be marked as duplicate because somebody might have found that surface level vulnerability, but not the root cause. So actually talking about the root cause lets you do a proper report while also making sure that it's handled correctly. Part of that handling process is I always make sure that I document everything from a clean environment. I've seen it and dealt with it quite a few times where somebody had to have pre-existing conditions. And at that point, somebody can't triage it, somebody can't respond to the report. One of my biggest frustrations, both as a researcher and from a CNA side, is that a lot of people tend to overinflate the values. I think I've only ever seen one CVE that deserved a CVSS score of 10. However, most of the time, a lot of that happens in reports. And the vulnerability I'm going to talk about today was not a critical. And the fact that I was able to say it was not a critical meant that I was able to keep it at a higher score because there was that people were reasonable and it was taken seriously. And then finally, whenever possible, I also tried to add some sort of potential solution for actually remediating the vulnerability, because it tends to have faster resolution times, and you can sometimes get extra swag and other rewards as well. So I'm going to give you a quick summary of the actual vulnerability itself before I go into the rest of the report. So this vulnerability was actually the first valid report for the AWS VDP program, which was awesome. And these pictures are actually from the summary itself, so I am sticking true to only using pieces from the report. So AWS had the Titan watermark image generator, or just image generator, which allowed you to use their AI models to generate any AI images that you want, and a watermark was applied to those images. So the reason the watermark was applied was so that there was no fake media or anything like that. And there was a service where you could check to see if the watermark was, if the image was watermarked or not. So if it was AI generated or not AI generated. And due to some factors and the way that the watermarking system worked, both on the watermark creation and watermark validation side, an attacker was able to arbitrarily add a watermark to any image or remove a watermark from any image. And here we can actually see, so this is a real image that I got from the internet from Google. Over here is the original, over here is the watermarked. You can see that there's actually no real difference at all. And then here we can see the final output from the watermark. So this is the actual watermark extracted that we were able to add on. And you'll also notice that there's a big missing black box here. And actually, Owen over here was one of the researchers who worked with me on it, so I'm glad he's here as well. So here's the other side. This was a AI generated image. Wanted to do a dog with a bee so that the report could actually be shared, wasn't anything sensitive. And as soon as the watermark was removed, you can see that it went from a high confidence score to not detected at all. So what exactly was the root cause of the vulnerability? I did say I like always starting with the root cause, and I normally talk about the root cause right after the summary and before the reproduction steps. And I will say this is, again, screenshot from the report. This vulnerability has been fixed, so this is talking about it's still vulnerable. And the reason that I like having a summary of the root cause before the actual reproduction steps is because I want that the reproduction steps are as simple as possible. Anyone can follow them. There should be no explanation in the actual steps themselves. But you can always refer back to the root cause analysis. So with this vulnerability, there were 4 main components of the watermarking system that we were able to use for our exploit. The first was that you could easily obtain a watermarked version of an image. So with that, if you upload an image, get any changes to it, you have an original image and the watermarked image. Second was that if you modified a small portion of the image, the entire image would get watermarked rather than one small part. Third was that if the watermark mask, so if you had the watermarked image minus the original image, and you applied that to an image that looked similar to the original one, the watermark would still be detected. So it didn't have to be a one-to-one match. And that's why it's okay for us to have that missing block. And then finally, a watermark would still be detected even if you only had a small part of the image itself. So I think we were able to go down to 16 by 16 pixels, and it would still detect the watermark. So if the watermark was in there at all, you could do a lot of attacks with that. So once we had explained the root cause, we wanted to document the steps in detail. And as I mentioned earlier, I like to really go through in detail from a clean environment and really talk about all of the little steps that I did. I mean, I might assume that everyone knows that US East 1 is what I'm using. However, not all triagers might expect that, because one of the issues I've run in before with something else is that one feature wasn't enabled on a different environment. So something that we as researchers would just assume that everyone would know, that might not be the case. I also listed exactly what service I used, as well as the other ones I tested, but specifying the exact service with all the parameters around it. And then I specified how I actually got there. So I talked about how I used the remove object tool, and then I used this one specific prompting piece as well. So what I did here is I have the original unwatermarked image, and I asked it to remove the man in green. And the reason I asked it to remove the man in green was because I could modify one small portion of the image, and then the entire image would still be watermarked. But because of those other features, if I got that watermark mask, remove the one part that was modified, I could reapply it back to the original image, or subtract it twice and take it away from an actual watermarked image. And the reason why I box out that component is because there's artifacting. if you have a great change on that one section. When I was actually talking about how to run the code, I had a good bit of how to run through the tools, extract all the values, and then we created the bounding box for the actual person standing there. Now, one of the things I always do is whenever I have values in any of my scripts, I make sure to actually explain where the coordinates are from. So you can see here, I have the coordinates, I have the actual values that they have to supply to the script, but I do explain the coordinates. And the reason for that is because as a triager, I wouldn't trust the researcher that a vulnerability works every time when they only provided one example. I might want to test it on something else. And if I don't explain where these magic numbers came from, you're not going to be able to reproduce it easily. One of the other things I also try to do is I try to keep my scripts as short as possible. So this was the entire attack script, 2 functions and the main function. And I try to actually put it into the markdown itself so that it can be easily reviewed. It's a lot easier to copy out a snippet of code rather than download something where you don't know it came from, especially if the person providing it is a hacker. So this was just a quick summary of the actual report. And I wanted to talk about some of the other issues that I've seen throughout the process. So these weren't issues that I had with the report itself, but always great to talk about. The first is that it is incredibly difficult sometimes to select the right CWE. In fact, Ryan and Sarah up front here created an AI system where you could actually help getting the correct CWE from your description. But not everyone has access to that. So as a researcher and a CNA, where I normally start is MITRE.org. They have a weaknesses for simplified mapping of published vulnerabilities. And what's great about this is it gives you this big overarching set of CWEs, and then you can really drill down into it. So if I know I have something to do with improper input validation, I can click on the top, I can expand it out. There might be something that fits a bit better for my CWE, there might not be, but it lets me work down from there. Another thing that I want to talk about was the pitfalls of CVSS. As I mentioned, not everything deserves a CVSS 10. In fact, this vulnerability wasn't a critical vulnerability. And I didn't try to mark it as one. Because if you try to mark something as a lot higher, the triagers aren't going to take you as seriously, especially if your report might have a different quality. And at that point, they're going to have to degrade the severity of the vulnerability because it doesn't match. And while CVS is great, some of the points can definitely be argued if it's just because of little nuances. So if they're already downgrading the CVSS because you've overinflated it, chances are it's going to be downgraded a lot more than what you actually were hoping for, just because they might go on the safer side of those nuances in case they have to argue over it. One of the other issues I've seen with CVSS is that some of the fields can be a bit confusing. So this is still CVSS 3.1, which is used a lot of times. There is a new CVSS scoring out there. But 2 fields that I always see people confused about are attack complexity and scope. So attack complexity is not actually, was this really, really easy to exploit, which I know, it's a very deceiving name. So attack complexity is how easy is it for an attacker to reuse this vulnerability? If every single time the vulnerability works out of the box, that's a low attack complexity. If I need an eclipse to happen and a solar flare to happen at the same time for me to actually exploit the vulnerability, that's going to be high attack complexity. The other one that I've seen, and this is why no CVE should really get a CVSS score of 10, is because of scope. A lot of people think that if you have an RCE, that's a scope change. However, that's not actually a scope change. A scope change happens when you go to a different level of control. So that means that if I have a vulnerability in a user level process, and that gives me privileges in the kernel, that would be a scope change. And almost all CVSS score or CVEs out there really don't have this. And then finally, as I mentioned, I always like to provide remediation instructions. So the remediation instructions I provided for this one were that one of the core features, again, referring back to the root cause, because I actually understood the vulnerability, was that I could extract that watermark. That watermark is always going to be in there. So you need some way to stop the attacker from actually extracting it. So I said only mask the portion that actually changed, especially because one of the features of the watermarking system was that you only needed a small part of the image, 16 by 16 pixels, to be watermarked for the entire image to register as watermarked. Why do I do this? So one, the reports tend to be resolved a lot faster. You also tend to gain the goodwill of program organizers, get invited to things, and then you also get satisfaction of actually knowing that not only did you find a vulnerability, but you actually helped a company like AWS patch that vulnerability. You were part of something better. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
And I said, always a pleasure working with Kaz. As you can see, great write-ups. And one of the core things that he was talking about there was the CWE accuracy. That is, the new CNA rules last year came about. Everybody's got to do a bunch more stuff. So if you're not up to date on CNA stuff, definitely Google it. Or I don't know, Azure it or Bedrock it or whatever. The last thing is, thank you for mentioning CNA Guru. So that's an open source application that we wrote at VulnCon last year due to complaints about the new CNA rules and how difficult it is to calculate CVSS scores, determine CWEs, write drafts of GHSAs or CVEs or submit to a CNA. All that stuff that's very niche that everybody has to do now as a software vendor. And that's available on GitHub if people want it. So thank you, Sarah. All right, and next up, we have the Amazon Vulnerability Research Program. I believe first up is Wesley and Justin as well. Excellent. Thank you, Judge.
Yep. How's it going, guys? Hello, everyone. Y'all are able to hear us back there, correct? Awesome, good deal.
Please give a hands up for AWS and
Yeah.
our brothers over there. Yeah. So I'm Justin. I'm a security engineer on Amazon's bug bounty program, otherwise known as Amazon VRP, right? So I started at Amazon about close to 10 years ago, packing boxes in the warehouses. And then I ended up becoming a security engineer hacking boxes, right? And I always love personal discipline. I feel like discipline is something you need in your life, especially if it's personal, spiritual, or just relationships in general, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Wesley. I've been with Amazon for about 3.5 years. I've been in the bug bounty space for going on 5 years. I started over at Yahoo on their bug bounty program. And yeah, now I'm here. Like I play video games sometimes. That's my hobby.
So this is our scope. We have quite a large scope, actually, not including Amazon Wildcard, Audible Wildcard. We have a Ring scope, Twitch as well, and there are Amazon devices such as Ring, Alexa, Echo, Eero, Kindle, Fire OS. So from here, you could see that we're constantly trying to expand our scope into other subsidiaries as well.
Oh yeah. So some just key stats on our program. We value our researchers' times. As they mentioned, without researchers, we cannot do what we do. So we want to make sure that the researchers that they can feel that we value that time, that effort, and that we are acting on it and we're moving it forward. So we try to keep our triage times reasonable. These are, like I said, these are averages. We do sometimes it will deviate a little bit, but this is our core metrics here. 23 hours to time to triage, 2 weeks to bounty, and we've been doing this for about 6 years.
So this is our rewards. So starting out as a low, you'll get a pay about $200, right? For medium, it's 400 to 600, high 2 to 6K, and then critical 12 to 25K. And later on, we'll go into our private, which has a bit more of a bonus structure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So as Justin mentioned, we have a private program. Some benefits to being in the private program: we usually pull our private researchers from our public program. Priority triage. You're a trusted researcher. We know that you usually send impactful Oh, sorry, I need to get a little bit louder. So you're a trusted researcher if you're in the private program. We know that you are not wasting our time, and we want to make sure that we action those quickly. So we will try to look at those reports quicker. We run events, so we will work to coordinate with y'all to get y'all to our private events. We just had one here. A few earlier this week, and occasionally we'll go travel around the world. What's next? We run beta programs, so occasionally we'll have, a new product gets developed, or there's a new service Amazon's working on, and we want to get some coverage and testing before we roll it out. In those cases, we'll reach out to our private researchers and get some testing done on it. And yeah.
So this is a few pictures from our live events. As you can see on your right, Wesley and I in green, it'll be our top security researcher that we've invited here later on in this talk. You see, this is actually our first Amazon on-campus LSRE, our live security researcher event, where we invited our researchers onto our HQ in Seattle, right? And we included extra rewards, bigger scope, as well as collaboration, not only with each other, but as with us, security engineers and our partner teams, right? So we had pen test and devices partners with us. So if the researchers ever had questions, they can directly reach out to us, but as well as our partners.
Okay, yeah, so an overview of, what happens whenever we get a report and what we do with it. So first step is, a researcher finds a bug and they report it to us. They go to our platform, vendor is HackerOne, submit it. It goes to a first round of triage where our triages will kind of go through, make sure it has all the steps that we need to begin actioning it. And yeah, once it makes it to the pending program stage, that means we are looking at it. At that point, we are running through it. We are doing our severity assessment. We are making sure that it has all the details we need, making sure that the proof of concepts have been sanitized, that they are safe for us to test with. And once we have done all of that, we begin the fun journey of trying to find which team owns this bit of code that is introducing this bug. That can be problematic sometimes. We have a very large organization, a lot of teams. So we spend a lot of time tracking down teams. When we find that team, we begin working with them. We send them a ticket with all the details, remediation steps, and we hop in calls and we start guiding them on the fix. During that time, once we have confirmed that it is a reproducible issue, it is time to start sitting down and we start figuring out, the final severity and what that translates into a bounty reward. So from there, we get the final severity, figure out the bounty reward, and release that bounty to our researcher. And then hopefully we get it fixed and yeah, get it retested and resolve the report.
Next up, we have our top researcher, Jonathan Bowman.
Hi all. Can you guys hear me at the back? I'm Jonathan. I'm a security researcher, apparently. I got a strange background. I'm trained in finding bugs in humans, which is quite similar to finding bugs in computers in some way. The only difference is that you also need to patch and do the remediation yourself. So I've been hacking on Amazon, I think, for 6 or 7 years. I think it's 7 years already. Yeah. And it all started just with some simple XSS, and then at some moment you got hooked into the program, earning points, no bounties at the time. I got a certificate with a knight on it, so that was a real flex to my girlfriend. And long story short, I got my first invite to DEF CON through earning all those points, and in the end, my disclosures now, I earn about 90% of my income with bug bounties, primarily on Amazon. I don't do any automation. I barely use AI, sometimes from a JavaScript file interpretations, but I eat carrots by days. I didn't create a slide myself, but there's a running joke. I'm with carrots. The thing with Amazon is that as a bug bounty hunter, sometimes you stick to a program, sometimes you switch and leave. And what I observe as a researcher for the last 7, 8 years is that I see people sticking to programs where they have predictable outcomes, where there's a team that is stable, where there's seniors involved that understand the broad picture. And that's something I experienced with the Amazon team. Where humans work, sometimes stuff gets a little bit rough, or it's not the other party understands quite well. But well, the reason I'm here still today is because we always find a way to resolve it, and that's a big plus there. I've been hacking also on other programs, and there's different. It's sometimes good, sometimes bad, but this is a real good program, so that's why I'm here also today. I got a few highlights. If you start your bug bounty journey today or you're already doing it, and my takeaways are try to get a buddy. So most of my hacking I do on Amazon is together with Zishano. He's a guy from UK. Some people know him from bugbountyhunter.com. And why I say get a buddy is because two know more than one. And when you get stuck, you can just drop the signal to the other end and you hope that the other person solves it, and the other way around. The other thing is that it sometimes helps you also to feel like, what is the true impact? So, like the previous speaker explained to the room, that sometimes we can overinflate the impact. Wow, it's like nothing. And it really helps to balance that out, because yeah, you get enthusiastic and you feel like, yeah, this is a real good bug and I could do whoa, whoa, whoa. But you need someone to say yes, but. Or wait a minute, there's way more impact in this bug. What did you think about chaining it together with this other small bug and this other small bug, and a few small bugs make a big bug? So there's always a striking balance, like what do you report today? What do you save for a few days and combine and mix up so you can show the true impact of the bugs? Another takeaway I have from doing bug bounties for 7 years in Amazon is the scope is so big. There's so much going on there. Just look up how many employees are developing the code of Amazon. And being aware of that, you need to figure out where do you go, in which rabbit hole, and go deep, go real deep. Try to get your hands on this robot delivering beers from the refrigerator to the back. I still don't really understand the product, but it was there at the moment. Try to buy it, try to get it at your home. Tear it apart, see if you can find someone to help you extract the software, the chips, and find this scope that is untouched. We still find by today bugs on the www.amazon.com website, but it's more adventurous if you go deep, because you also learn stuff. And if you don't find a bug, you at least learn something new. Some bug bounty hunters do this full time, and I've got a lot of respect for that, because that is quite stressful, in my opinion. And being a doctor, I want you to not go burnout. So I would advise you to do it part-time or as a hobby. And then at some point you might end up like, it's my hobby, but I got a lot of income from it. But if I need to stop tomorrow, it's fine. If I want to go deep into a rabbit hole and don't find anything in a month, it's okay. I still got my other jobs. And that enables you to do research that other researchers not easily do, because yeah, there's a high risk of not finding anything. That's it. That being said, it is an amazing journey. It is a thing of collaborating. Those live hack events, I'm not sure, is there anyone in the room who have been to a live hack event? See one hand, wherever you work at Amazon. Jerry, yeah, you've been to tons of that. So the live hack events, think of it like 2 weeks remotely, 1.5 week remotely. You get a Zoom call with all the hackers there and the team. You get a scope call like, oh, you can hack this part, or please have focus on that because we give bonuses. And after 1.5 weeks, you fly in to a location, for example, the headquarters in Seattle or Las Vegas or different places of the world. And that moment, you start collaborating with the other people. So the first part of the remote, then you have got this doomed window. So if I find a bug, you do, we split the bounty. But after we all travel to the location, then it's first bug in for that wins. And what I observed is that most of the hackers share their open leads with the other people. Like, hey, I got something there, can't really exploit it, but you're good at browser exploitation. Can you have a look? Because this thing, I think, creates a screenshot with a browser. So try it. And that's amazing to see this young kid or an old guy or another doctor or whatever background someone has, try grabbing your bug and actually exploit it and make it something impactful. I can imagine there are maybe some questions from the room to me to ask to answer anything, but I'm not sure about how.
I think we're gonna do some questions at the end.
At the end, okay. Yeah, oh, I got some slides there. Yeah, why Amazon challenging targets, obviously, because there's a lot, Gen AI, financial systems, hardware, and that also makes you think really out of the box. Like, how does a financial system communicate with another financial system? How can I get in between those? Yeah, this is all stuff I already told you. And as a lot of the research is in production, your impact is on real customers. As soon as you find a bug on the public website, you know that if you report it, you might protect a lot of people. So that's also something I have always in my mind, like who are the most vulnerable groups that might use Amazon and how can I protect them? Okay, I look more into that part of the scope. You can all imagine who those groups are. And that makes it not only a rewarding thing in money, but also a rewarding feeling in terms of impact on society. Yeah.
So right here, we just want to just give you a few key insights, right? Just want to thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah,
for
thank you,
coming up.
But so, yeah, like Justin said, basically pro tips to get your report triage faster.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we want to reiterate, right? Stay in scope, right? Who in here is an active bug bounty researcher? Yeah, see some hands. Okay. Awesome. Well, we just want to commend you for submitting to Amazon or any other program that's, constantly keeping up the security of their environment, right? First and foremost, like I said, stay in scope. We provided a list of scope, but there's also scopes on our program, right? And then provide a clear, full reproduction steps of how to reproduce that bug. 9 times out of 10, researchers or you as bug bounty hunters know the scope or the web application way better than I do, right? And I could see it. I'll see your report and I say, I've never even seen this before, right? Now I have to go to the service team and say, how does this even work, right? So to get your, to speed up your triage, we just want to make sure that you provide all types of specific accounts or the source and sync or even the DOM of whatever you're submitting. And then we just want to reiterate to test with your own data and account. Don't test with customer accounts because these are real life customers. And, it's pretty simple to make 2 or 3 extra accounts to serve for your own reports.
Yep. Yeah, following up on that, screenshots and videos, right? So with the full reproduction steps, we should be good. Sometimes reports, they get lengthy and there's a lot to it. And we will begin going back and forth, need more information, and a video will help a lot with that. The more complexity, the more likely we need a video just to save some time and get it going. Recommended remediations. Yeah, like was mentioned earlier, you've been playing with the bug. You know the service. You might know what makes it tick and how to fix it. And that insight can help us hopefully get the service fixed faster and protect our services and our customers. Another thing here, sanitize payloads. A lot of times, a bug will need a proof of concept, and you might have to script out something to take some specific action, self-host it, or whatever. We want y'all to do this, but we want to make sure it is sanitized and safe for us to test with. So be providing that full proof of concept, that full script to us so we can self-host it, review it, and make sure that it is safe for us to test with and to even work with our devs to test is super helpful. And then, yeah, lastly, I can't speak, clear impact statements. Tell us the impact that you found. What can this be used for? I do want to call out here, though, is that while I want to see impact statement, if someone finds a bug and they are not sure what the impact is, I don't ever want that to be a blocker to reporting the bug. You might be new and you have something, you're just not sure what it can be used for. That shouldn't be a blocker to reaching out to us, because we can do that extra mile. We can go and we can look into it and see what the full impact is. And I'd much rather, you report something that you're unsure of so we can do our due diligence than leaving it out there and it not getting the attention it needs. And yep.
And lastly, we have a surprise sign-up bonus. So if you're a first-time researcher or if you're just bug bounty hopeful, you ever think about wanting to jump into bug bounty, honestly, Amazon Scope has something for everybody. And right now you can go back into the desk right over here and receive a challenge point. So this will have a special code that you'll put into your report and you'll get an extra 10%. But some of the qualifications are you must be a new researcher, you must never have submitted a bug bounty report, also including the unique code, but this is only valid until the 31st. So pick up your code while they're still available. This is how you submit. If anybody would like to scan the code, it's also on the back of the coin as well. Any questions?
when you get a bug bounty researcher submitting something, how quickly do you engage, or when do you, or if, like your IR team to see if it has been exposed or anything on the AWS side?
Yes, AWS. So since it's an AWS question, I'll take that one. AWS has multiple SLAs that we meet when things are reported. So within the first couple hours, so I believe it's 4 hours of a submission, it will be reviewed by a human, and not an automated system. A real person will start triaging it. That is when we will determine if it is critical or not critical. If it is not critical, you will get a real human to start doing your entire triage process within the first 24 hours. If it is critical, it will immediately be escalated up to the second tier triage for us to do things such as check out scoping, possible impact, as well as get escalations going to get more resources to do a remediation, a mitigation, or further coordination, and all the other words that rhyme with that, I just realized. You had a second part to the question.
So currently the way we have is we get submissions from HackerOne. They, if it's a critical or high, it comes directly to my teams.
Yep.
And we do the security investigation instead of just letting the bug bounty team handle it. So kind of curious how maybe Amazon handles something like that. If you're reaching out to your security IR teams to see if that's being exploited or has been in the past.
So one of the slides that we didn't include in this presentation, but if you're interested in seeing the full workflow and us actually going through that with kind of a decision tree flow chart, check out my talk from Forward Cloud Sec Europe from September. I give a full breakdown of actually how we do the decision making for things like that, of when we escalate, when we engage specific service teams, when we engage executives, or when we have to go outside of our normal IR team. To give you a high level, what we do is the reports come in. We have one of two input mechanisms for the AWS side. One's the AWS security inbox, which is old school. It's email. It is text-based. It accepts some attachments, but you're not going to get emojis from me. And that I find sad. So we flipped over to expand out our VDP program to also accept reports from the HackerOne platform. Hopefully, eventually we can expand a bit more to find people where they live and get them to submit on their favorite platform of choice. But when one of those reports comes in, it gets that first tier of triage where we look and see who's impacted. Is it technologically feasible or is it theoretical that gets submitted? And then what could be the possible risk or impact? That's done by our tier one triage. At that point, that's how we decide who to engage. Does it go directly to the service team because it's a very well-written report with impact, remediation suggestions, a full POC, things like that? Does it have to go to our IR team because it could possibly be an incident or some other type of scoping concerns with it? And then lastly, the remediation timeline, right? Remediation means a lot of things. It also does not mean mitigation. Those are very different terms, right? You want to mitigate always to stop the bleeding and make sure people are protected. But those are temporary fixes. Remediation is your long-term destination. So defining out the timeline is who we would engage. We have internal IR teams and we have customer IR teams. And based on impact and scope is who we engage in that method. And like I said, in the talk previously, I did the full flow chart of it. It's hard to point to just the questions and tell you what side it was. But if you do have questions about the process more in depth, feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're happy to go through and give a bit more transparency to what it's like to actually coordinate and collaborate with us.
Thank you.
Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, so if you're, one HackerOne, that is a ERP, but not a VDP, sorry. Vulnerability disclosure policy versus. What's paid, what's not paid.
Correct. Amazon VRP is a rewards program or a bug bounty. AWS vulnerability disclosure is a non-monetary rewards program currently. We are always taking feedback and looking at ways to improve the system. In fact, this year we added 6 more rewards tiers, some cool stuff. In fact, I believe Albin went through the list of about 8 different things that we've added to the program based on researcher requests.
My understanding of the difference is that if you're gonna get paid, right? Amazon, I don't know how to describe it, without a punishment. right? So if you're getting paid, there's an opportunity.
So there's different programs entirely. So neither of the public programs have that restriction.
Says that you know,
It said is coordinated disclosure, right? Without the.
Where does it say that? On the VDP page or on the Amazon VRP page? Yeah, well, we'll check afterwards and follow up with you on that, because very specifically, the VDP program allows for coordinated disclosure. You will see if you go to our VDP program that 80% of our reports are publicly disclosed after the fact in coordination with the researcher, as well as their blogger presentation that we help coordinate with them on. The reason why we collaborate on that type of content is because there's a lot of overlap in terminology between technologies. And because of that, there's always confusion on when terms are used. So we're making sure that when you state something, it is factually accurate and won't be misinterpreted to be caused as inflammatory because it's not technically accurate. So we help try and coordinate those types of things. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, quick question on hacker one, and probably more than the ERP scientist. Recently, there's been a lot of AI stuff. Is this something that you've seen as well? Are you dealing with that? Using the workflow, talking about issues maybe?
Well, I saw, just from our creator talk with other bug bounty programs with PayPal, Splunk, Shopify, and AWS as well, right? It's affected across all programs and not just one central one. But yeah, I feel we see like not quite a few, but just some here and there, right? And this is across all programs that has been reported, right? So.
And what we said yesterday is a valid report is a valid report, regardless if it was slop or if it was written otherwise. Where this comes into is we get a lot of slop. So remember that some of the reasons why it takes so long to respond is because we have to go through every report and make sure and validate that it is not an issue. The problem with AI slop is you will get 3,000 words that say, I can log into my account, which is expected behavior, right? But we have to go through that. We have to validate all the different steps that the AI thought about adding to it and whatnot, doing the POC, doing the workflow, going through to the end to make sure it's not an issue, and then closing it. Those human hours really add up a ton, and it causes us to have slower response times to more legitimate independent researchers a lot. So we are working on ways to actually do a lot of filtering to do identification of AI slop. But even if we identify something as AI generated for a write-up, it could be a valid issue or a concern that got submitted. So no matter what, we still have to validate it.
Yeah, there's a risk there, and then with AI stuff, you could get overlooked.
Oh, yeah.
The actual important stuff where so an attacker that potentially just generate 1,000 pieces. That very thing to look reasonably okay, overloading your team. And one direction,
So we do build some stuff against that. So there's report volume as well, which is one thing that we'll do. So velocity of report. If you are in a program and you have been submitting for a while, you have associated with you a couple of attributes. One is reputation. Reputation is usually how many valid supports you have submitted. There's a couple of different ways on different platforms to generate better reputation. But also velocity. So how many reports are you doing regularly within a certain amount of time? That's a metric that the platform gathers for us. So we use things like that to, one, look for spammers, people that are just flooding us with terrible findings and write-ups, which is against our policy written there. So it can lead up to getting booted from the program. And then also we use it to find some trending stuff. If you submitted 10 reports on a service, you might just be a subject matter expert in that service. You might not be, scanning and sending us low fidelity findings. You could just be a really good researcher for that service. And we have to define and separate that out. So we build some automation, some tooling, and then we have humans behind all of it making the final decision. Because you do not replace a human with AI. You use it as an assistant to get actionable information faster, right? A human still makes the determination on every single one of our reports.
And also, like you saw from the report life cycle, the first response is from our vendor, right? Our third-party vendor. And so 9 times out of 10, we don't see it first. So they are able to go through it before us. So that way they can determine whether it's spam, NA, or informative, right? And other times we can see it before they see it. And we can end up triaging it, like Ryan said. And, just because it's AOS slop doesn't mean it's not a valid report, right? So, yeah.
And the last thing, how are we doing on time? Just make, we still got plenty. Okay, excellent. Are there more questions that you'd like to go over as part of the submission process? Questions about getting started? In fact, we could probably show some of the pages and do kind of a walkthrough demo of like what questions we ask for the reports, the information that we ask for, and the reasons behind it. If that's of interest. Otherwise, we're always happy to answer questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Folks, can I have just your 1 minute?
You get
Thank you.
loud.
Thank you. Folks, can I have a minute? Thank you, Ryan Nolette, Albin Vattakattu, Wesley Sponsler, Justin Knight, Jonathan Bauman, the first security doctor I'm going to meet, and Kasimir Schulz. Thank you so very much for walking us through Amazon's various programs. Hey, can we get one round of applause, please?